Namaste. Let us close your eyes and, being comfortable, become aware of the body, experience the sensation, comfort, and steadiness. Sarvesham swastir bhavatu. Sarvesham swastir bhavatu. Sarvesham swastir bhavatu. Let everyone be happy. We contemplate and reflect on it. What is understanding? Understanding means that cause and effect relationship is clear. So, what is the cause of our happiness? There is no cause. Happiness is me, but I don't recognize it. So, journey of the Eastern wisdom is to recognize and realize I am happiness. So, we reach to the ultimate cause. We find the cause that is not the ultimate cause. You are the source of my happiness today, and you are the source of sorrow tomorrow. It happens with everything in the world outside, every object, every event, every situation. No, it is not possible. My honey is the source of happiness always. Mind it, it cannot be the source of happiness all the time. If it is the source of happiness, then what is going to happen? Then everyone will chase your honey because she is or he is the only source of happiness. So the source of happiness is somewhere else. And that journey is the journey of the Eastern wisdom. Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu. Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu. Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu. Source of peace is not in the world because the world is an effect ultimately of the ultimate cause of the universe. That is the existence. So the effect cannot be the permanent source of peace and happiness. Marriage is an effect. Separation is an effect. Do you see that? When we live into that awareness, we know I have to discover the ultimate cause. The ultimate cause is the real self, our essential nature. Why we say essential nature? The sweetness of a sugar. You put the sugar into a lemon water with a lemon water is sweet. You put it into any dessert, it becomes sweet. So sweetness is never lost. Sarvesham, Sarvesham, Purnam Bhavatu. Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu. Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu. Purnam Bhavatu. Completeness, wholeness. If the existence is whole, there is a oneness in the existence, and if I am a creation of that existence, I am also whole. But I don't recognize it. Why? Because the mind is running outside, seeking peace and happiness outside. So it is seeking peace and happiness in the effect. Effect is the world. But the world cannot be, world is the only an effect. The ultimate cause lies somewhere else. So when we are searching that ultimate cause, we are there. Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Mangalam Bhavatu, auspiciousness. So either the auspiciousness is always there. I'm a human being, that is a matter of auspiciousness. The situation I am in, the event in which I am in, at every moment in my life, the relations with which I am in, is a moment of auspiciousness. Why? You just stop being a consumer and you see the auspiciousness is always there because every moment is helping me to evolve. What has happened in the past in ignorance because of a wrong choice I exercised? Wrong choice is an effect of the RSM syndrome, raga, shoka, and moha, the attachment, sorrow, and the delusion. Because of my expectation, because of my attachment. Otherwise, the life moves into the auspiciousness because the entire existence is auspicious. I see it as a consumer. I see the world as a utilitarian. Why I see it? Because I'm attached to something, I'm detached to something, I like something, I dislike something. And that is the way we live our life. And that is what causes the stress and the suffering in our life, and we do not recognize our real nature. My friend, we need to understand it. Understanding means what? Understanding means cause and effect. I know here is a cause and here is an effect, and then if the cause does not become an effect for the another cause, then obviously it is the ultimate cause. So once your mind settles into the ultimate cause, you have found the real self. Gita is such a beautiful text that summarizes the teachings of more than 3,000 texts, 3,000 masters. Krishna is the master. You know the meaning of the Krishna? Krishna means that which attracts. When your mind is pure, only the Krishna will attract you. Krishna means that attraction, that pulse. Another meaning of the Krishna, the master, is the plow. You know, the way they plow, in olden days, we plow the field. Krishna attracts, attracts, attracts. So we have the 18 chapters of the Gita. The first 6 chapters deals with who am I, my real nature. It also deals with what is an individual self. Is there a difference between the individual and the real I? And it also, the first 6 chapters also says what action we should take. Not only what action we take, with what attitude we take an action. Attitude. So you say, for example, any of your relations, or you are with your honey, you're outside, you see the neighbor says hi, and you say I love you. You say to the neighbor, is this thought a wrong or right? Obviously my mind says my intellect says this thought is wrong, because why I say to my neighbor that I love you. So the Eastern wisdom teaches us that no thought is wrong. Because if you use the same thought, I love you, to your honey, it makes sense. So thought is neither right or wrong. Then what is wrong? Any thought that I use in a particular situation, in a particular relationship, in a particular event, makes the thought wrong or right. Otherwise, every thought has nothing to do with the right and wrong. That is the art. That is that level of awareness we have. But if we are guided and dictated by the RSM syndrome, that I love you saying to the neighbor because of RSM syndrome. No thought is right. Even the anger is supposed to be right when it is used in a particular situation with a particular attitude in the mind. So when I say to my neighbor, I love you, the attitude in the mind is possessed by craving, sensuality, and long list. That is what we learn in the first 6 chapters. The second 6 chapters are about what exactly is the supreme consciousness. What exactly is the nature of that supreme consciousness? So, in the first 6 chapters, we are taught how to perform an action. We cannot live without action. We have to perform an action. But in the next chapter, everything is happening. So that happening, can I receive that happening as a grace and a blessing? So existence does not perform an action. It just lives in the state of happening. So in the first 6 chapters, I'm a doer, so I have to refine and shine the doership to such an extent that I do not remain as a doer. I receive the blessing and the grace from the existence that becomes my doership and the enjoyership. It's very deep. In the next 6 chapters, still the question and the doubt is that what is the relationship between the real self and the supreme self? Are they one? Are they different? If they are different, then how come they are different? And if they are one, how and why they are one? So if they are one, is the supreme consciousness is there, is here in the heart of everyone, and that is only one? How it is possible? That is the entire journey of the spirituality or awakening or realization. So again, be very clear in the first 6 chapters, what exactly is the real self and the individual self? What exactly is the nature? And how I have to perform the karma, the action in my personal, professional, social life, so that I do not fall trap by the attachment in the mind, by expectation, by duality and a conflict. But the next 6 chapters, it is all about the supreme consciousness, the supreme existence, which normally the religion calls the God or God realization. So, what is my responsibility? In what way? What should I do to reach to that supreme self? Can all the actions be? Can every action in my personal, professional, social life, including the family life, be a prayer to the supreme existence? Remember, prayer is not, I'm talking of the religion, the prayer is a recognition that there is a supreme existence, there is a cognitive ability to recognize that there is a supreme existence which rules this individual self. That is another way to understand what is awakening. And the third group of the 6 chapters of the Gita is always, it talks about the knowledge, clarity. We are, we are in the second chapter. We have almost covered verse number 11. Are we really worthy of suffering? But it continues the journey until another 18 or 19 verses, perhaps 20 verses. It clarifies that we are not worthy of suffering. At the same time, it helps us to recognize the real self, recognize intellectually. It tells us that what exactly is the real self and how it is different from the individual self, which is driven by the ego being a consumer. So you can say that the topic of the suffering and the pain and the affliction and the attachment and the expectations and the duality and a conflict has been covered in the 20 verses. So the second chapter makes everything clear. There is no way we should be suffering in our life. We have to go slowly. We have to understand each and every step. So the master says, I have to prepare myself to be a seeker. So if the master is saying because you are suffering because of you are attached to the effect, and the effect is the world outside. The world is time, place, event, and it consists of time, location, and the object. And that object includes the people, objects, relations, etc. We have discussed earlier. So the master says that as a seeker we should move with the two conditions. I have to loosen that sense of attachment and expectations of from the world outside, but mind by default it attaches to something, it likes something. What should we do? So let us cultivate an attachment to the supreme existence. Say it is a Lord, or you just may say it is a God. I have not recognized, but there is some supreme existence. So let me be attached to the supreme existence. That is still unmanifest. First condition. And the second condition, it says, the master says, take shelter in that existence instead of taking shelter in the attachment, in the duality, in the sorrow, in the suffering, and in creating a lot of craving and using the word as a consumer. So when I am a consumer, the word is consumed, is an object or a person or a thing. So I do not take shelter in that. I recognize instantly. I have a cognition. I have an understanding whether I'm taking shelter in the objects of the world or existence. How to do it? By thinking. So, what happens in day to day life? In day to day life, the mind becomes the most dangerous thing for us. Whose mind? Your own mind. tiger and the snake and difficult situation in the life is not so dangerous, because it is the mind, the way it thinks, makes the situation, condition people very dangerous. And we continue to struggle in anxiety, duality, reaction, grief, and lot of problems. That is why we liked one thing at one time in one location. We dislike the same thing at a different location at a different time. You have to check that nature of the mind. Then we rationalize. We rationalize and the wrong notions. When the wrong notions are there, then it creates a wrong relationship and situation and events in my life. So I superimpose those conditions and relations in my life, and then same mind, so it is so dangerous. It says that now I am suffering. Everything is done by the mind, and then the mind blames itself. Hidden behind is the ego, the doership. We cannot make the mind healthy until we remove the cause, and the cause is the RSM syndrome. We cannot make the mind pure and healthy until we dig deep inside our own mind, not blaming anyone in the world outside, not blaming the condition, not blaming the parents, not blaming, reacting to anything. So the mind cannot be made pure and healthy until it goes into its cause. And for finding the cause, we have to look inside us. It is the most dangerous and the most dear friend. When the mind is pure, it becomes the most dearest friend. And the mind is full of impurities, it becomes the most dangerous enemy. So here comes another challenge. Mind cannot remove the problems into its effect. Cause of the mind is the supreme consciousness. Are you getting it? Cause of the mind is supreme consciousness. So mind is like a river, consciousness is like an ocean. The river must merge, dissolve into an ocean is the way. That is why I said we should be attached to the supreme consciousness. Now understanding that suffering again, what if we define the mind, mind means wrong capacity to derive false pleasure, false pain from a situation, from a people, from relationship, in an event or a situation at a particular time. I experience the pain because my dear and the near ones did not meet my expectations. I forget that very expectations and I focus on the world outside. I projected that I'll be earning $1 million in this project, but I earn only $100,000. Who is thinking like this? The mind. But $1,000, it's a benefit to me. No, but I'm more worried that I lost $900,000. Apply the same logic wherever you have a stress and the suffering. You will discover that it is the mind is the most dangerous enemy in the world. I'm laying down the context for another verse. So unless we understand the very context, it becomes difficult for us to understand the verse number 12, 13, and 14, the chapter. I cannot sleep when the light is on, but after sleep I do not know if the light is on. My goodness, I hate the same soulmate which I loved a couple of months and years ago. I have to become aware. Who is saying this? Knower number two? We discussed that. Knower number one, knower number two, knower number three. Oh, the knower number two says I hate, and that knower number two becomes the known. It becomes an experience also. It becomes an experiencer also. How the experiencer can ever become the experience? Knower cannot become the known. I'm doing a morning walk. So I'm not my feet. Remember this. First impression is the last impression we see. And later in the life, the same first impression becomes the worst impression. Why? Mind is the dangerous. Knower, it becomes the knower and the known. And it replaces the known as a knower number two, and the knower number two becomes the known. It is a hodgepodge, it's a mixture, and that mixture is nothing but the ignorance, because we cannot find the cause and effect relationship. There is no right knowledge. It's a misconception. That misconception is known as the ignorance. Ignorance is the cause of this suffering. Asato ma satagamaya. Lead us from the false to the real. To whom I'm saying to move from the, whom I'm saying lead us, lead me from the false to the real. I'm invoking the Supreme Consciousness. I am, you can say, doubtfully aware that there is some existence. So, okay, let me say it. What I wanted to say, we are experts. We are great experts in extracting pain and the suffering from almost every situation, event, people, and the relations. We have become an expert. And because of our expertise, the mind acts as a dangerous enemy, and it continues to cause suffering in our life. That mind extracts pain, grief, suffering, joy, including the pleasure from every situation, and cannot become pure. That is the indication that mind is still impure. We need to delete the past programming that creates an attitude, and attitude is expressed in the behavior. We need to uninstall the Windows 10. If you are using the Windows computer, we have to completely uninstall the Windows 10. We have to reinstall the latest Windows 11. But if I like the Windows 10, means what I like to live in the same way. Are you understanding? The oldest version of the software. I claim I like Windows 10, but the masters, experts who have created Windows 11, after so much of deliberation and thinking, it took them 5 years, 6 years, sometimes it takes 10 years to develop that software. We don't believe it. The same thing, we don't believe the teachings of the masters. Because I like it, so I have to use the same old software. Use it. that level of the faith and the conviction is required to treat the path of the Eastern wisdom, and who has that level of conviction that what Eastern wisdom and the teaching is saying, I have to adopt it, I have to experiment, I have to discover before I say I have a lot of doubt without applying it. I have to find out how the window 11 is good, in what way, in what respect. Unless I contemplate and deliberate and think, then I will find out. Obviously, window 11, that's why they have developed this window. We got carried away by some news articles, those who have to write an article to earn money, they write article for the sake of the money. They don't see how much pain has been taken to develop. Oh, there may be some bugs, and they are ready to remove those bugs, and they remove it. That bugs we can remove once we are a seeker, we commit to the path, and then we are ready to remove the bugs here and there in our life. That is another way the verse 11 can be explained. Asocyan anvasochah tvam pragyavada bhashase gatasun agatasun chana anusochanti pandita. So the master is saying to the seeker, don't declare that you are a wise man because you like window 10, the old programming of the mind. What about those 50, 100 experts who developed an updated version? Because of your liking, you have rejected everything? Because you like something, hence you reject the entire Eastern wisdom? And you claim you are a wise? No, you are a wise fool. Did you understand another perspective of this? That is what we have been doing, the verse number 11. What is required? As a seeker, we keep the power of discernment in the intellect alive all the time, in my thought, in my speech, in my action. It makes me a higher seeker. When we live in that state of the discernment, a great reality of the life, the great truth of the life that is opened with a very much from this verse, the subject of the grief. Grief, suffering, RSM syndrome demands our power of discernment to analyze, to have a cognitive ability to separate the two. Who is to be grieved for, and who is not worth grieving to? If I grieve because I am totally separate, I am living in ignorance, I don't know the real self, grieve for that. Every day you should have a thought, I have yet to recognize my real self. I have yet to realize what is the ultimate cause of my life and what is the purpose of my life. Let me grieve for that. That grieving will cause an attachment to the real self even if you don't know it. We are grieving for those not worth grieving. Are you getting it? But I'm just giving a context on which the next verse is there, even though 11, almost 20 verses talks in detail about clarity and understanding. So the master is answering the question of the grief and the suffering from different points of view. Why different points of view? Why not only one? Because our mind changes. It accepts one, it rejects the other. So wherever the rejection comes from the mind, the master says, here is another solution. Try to understand. Don't be fooled by the RSM syndrome. So when the master says you are a wise fool, he is not mocking, but he is attacking that power of ignorance, and that power of delusion is greater, is very deep. Power of delusion is very deep. Why not everyone follows the path of the Eastern wisdom? The power of delusion is so deep that the mind of that greater, the the deeper delusion of the mind does not even think that I'm in the delusion. So that is why he attacked the delusion. That's why he says, you are wise fool. And that is why the master took up the question of the death, which has an extreme fear. Well, we have a fear of ill health, sickness, we have a fear of the disease, we have a fear of losing the wealth, we have fear of not having the money. A lot of fears, but the extreme fear is definitely the fear of the death. A non-seeker who wants to be a seeker, he went to a monastery in the forest. Master gave one first lesson: every God is present everywhere. So you should love everyone. You see how the greater delusion of the mind takes place. So the first lesson was over, and the master says, go back, contemplate, and reflect. Next day, again come at the same time. I'll give you the second lesson. So the monastery was in the forest, and that non-seeker who wants to be a seeker was passing through the forest, going into his village. During the wise man, he met the wise man. Wise man said, don't follow this path, there is a lion on this path. Follow the other path, you'll be safe. So he is in between the non-seeker and the seeker. That is very dangerous state of mind. We sometimes leave the prayer. Oh, no, nothing is there, let me leave it. So this non-seeker told the wise man, oh, everything is God, I need not to be scared of. Anyhow, he continued to follow that path, and the lion was in front. Lion attacked. He started running. Anyhow, he saved himself. He went to the village, a lot of wounds and everything. And then he rested. But because he had an urge to become a seeker, to treat the path, he went again to the master on the second day. Master intuitively knew what happened, but anyhow he asked, "See, what happened to you? Why so much of wound, and you have plasters all around your body?" "No, you taught me God is everywhere. God is in everyone." "Yes, I said the truth, and then I followed the path, and the God was in the lion. The God attacked me." I'm explaining wise fool. So master said to you, wise fool, You saw God is in the lion, you did not see the God in the wise man who warned you not to follow this path. You did not listen to the first God. You did not listen to the first God, and you were attached to the God is in everyone, so you ignored the advice, warning, caution of the wise man. Man, you did not see the God in the man, and you are arguing that God is in the lion? That happens to the non seeker. That happens to the non seeker, wise fool, and the wise seeker. So the God is in everyone. God was in the wise seeker. He should have heard the advice and the caution by the wise man. He should not have followed the path. He should not have been attacked by the lion. Yeah, not many people dare to do that. So I listened to the teacher, but how my mind interprets two options, either into a delusion or into a discernment. We have to be very careful. It may happen in the beginning. In the beginning, mistakes do happen. We have to rectify these mistakes by constant contemplation and reflection. But Master said that first there is an attachment and detachment, and then we have a sorrow, and then because the sorrow, then we have a delusion. But here, in the case of the lion, the first we had a delusion, and then we suffered. First, I was in delusion that God is lion, and ultimately the lion attacked, and I started suffering. So there is an original ignorance. There is a secondary ignorance caused by the attachment and detachment, but before attachment and detachment, there is an original ignorance. So sometimes because of the delusion, we suffer. Sometimes we suffer because of, ultimately, because of the delusion. So both way it is possible. But again, because of the likes and dislikes causes the attachment and detachment, and that likes and dislikes is caused by non-thinking. Why non-thinking? Because mind is the source, such a dangerous thing. It accumulates all the impressions, it multiplies, and then it uses by rationalizing. And once we have those, so it follows, anything can be understood that primary cause or secondary cause, but ultimately these three work together. And when they work together, it results into unfavorable or favorable, good and the bad conditions in your life, and that results in sins and the virtues we have already discussed. I'm not going to talk in detail about it. So now see this verse number 12 with that context. There are two contexts, Noah number 1, Noah number 2, Noah number 3. So Noah number 3 is the real self, is present in the lion and present in you and me. But the Noah number 2 has to take a right decision, to make a right choice, not in delusion, but in discernment. So what the discernment says when you hear the wise man, don't follow this way. How simple it is. I love you, honey. Even my dad is opposed to me. My friends have advised me don't get so much of attached. I don't listen. I receive the advice. My mom, dad, my near and the dear ones, but we don't listen. It happens. So the verse number 12, Natu ev aham jatunasam natvam ime janadhipa nacha ev no bhavishyama sarvevam atah param. So what it means, not any time. Now we are talking of our existence. We think body is my existence, mind is my existence. But the Master is talking not at any time in the past. Indeed, was I not, nor you, nor these people in the entire people that we see, which we call our relations. They also existed before. They are existing now. They will never cease to exist. Means what we essentially are transcends the time and the space. Real self is independent. When it is independent, it is pure consciousness. It exists before, during, and after. What did not exist before? Ego self. What exists now is the ego self. What will not exist in the future? It is the ego self is talking about it. The first difference between the false I and the real I. The real I always exists, it is eternal, and false I is subjected by the time and the space, the name and the form. Hence, it is futile to grieve over the dead or the living. I'm upset because of you is not worth grieving. And someone died, that too is not worthy of grieving. Or someone left me. Just take the death as someone divorced me, someone left me, someone hated me. Normally, in Indian tradition, we use two negatives to impress upon the mind to find the reality of something. We have a tendency to use the two negative. So instead saying that I always exist, we find a narration, there was never a time when I did not exist, nor shall I cease to be. So two negatives gives a tremendous emphasis that I always exist, and that I is the real I. Means the time prior to my birth, body birth, when the body was not there, but the self was there. That applies to every living creature in this world. You, I, even the king and the president Biden, no exception. The second period is the time after the death, when the body falls off but the self still remains. Then who is born? Who dies? The body. No one. Two meaning. He is born in who dies? No one. And who is born and who dies? Only the body, but body is not me. Why should I grieve? Why should I grieve? Take it in a very normal sense. One has left you. You are deeply attached to that person, so you are grieving. You have tried your best, and now still the person has left you. It is the attachment that is causing the bondage. You drop the attachment, one has left you for good. Let me evolve. The master in the 13th verse uses a very pragmatic approach. He says that as the self passes physically, self, which is eternal, which bypasses the time and the space. As the self passes through the childhood, youth, and the old age, what does it mean by the childhood, youth, and old age? Means there is a changes in the body. The self remains the same. That I, which you used in childhood, which you use in your 20s, and which you are using now, that I is the same. But by mistake, I use with reference to the body, and that causes the problem. Don't we use the I continuously? Don't we recognize it is the same I that I used in the childhood, that I used in the youth, that I used in my 20s and 30s and 40s and the old days with such a long hair? The I was this common denominator. But I brand I myself with the body, and that is the problem. So the master is using the first three. He uses the three changes in the body, and he has excluded the death also. So we will talk about that. So the first, understand that childhood I'm using I, 20s I'm using the same I. Even the body has changed tremendously, capacity, formation, level of mind and intelligence level, attachment, and a lot of things have changed completely in the body, but still I'm using the same I. These three events, take three events, you can convert into millions of events. Every day the body is changing. Why he says this? That real self is of the nature of the consciousness. Body is not, body is inert, it is matter, it is made up of the matter. It is made of the carbohydrate, protein, and fiber, etc., etc. We all know it. That does not have a consciousness. So when I use the word I, it means consciousness. So that consciousness is non-material. It has nothing to the body. The changes in the body. So Master Krishna asks us to understand this clearly. You have to be concerned with that consciousness which remains throughout the changes in the body, which we use, which we refer as the I. Why should we attach so much importance? Why should we give too much of importance to the birth of the body, changes in the body, and also including the death? Now the death has come. So when we use the word death, it is only with reference to the body. It had nothing to do with the reference to the consciousness. Consciousness never dies. Consciousness never takes birth. So not only the important event of birth at one corner, before that I don't know, then childhood, youth, old age, and the death. After death I don't know anything. But this birth and the death, it belongs to the body, to the inert, not to the consciousness. We continue to exist. So that we will understand that how we continue to exist after the death, how we existed prior to the appearance of the body. when we find the ultimate cause. I told you, knowledge means understanding. It has nothing to do with the belief, cult, release, and dogma, etc. No blind belief. We will understand logically. Nothing mystical. So now the question of the grief comes when the body changes from health to the sickness, from sickness to the so-called the incurable disease. It is happening in the body, not into the consciousness. Pragmatic approach. Such an understanding is possible only when we learn to see the body as an instrument separate from our consciousness. As the birth is one stage of life, so the death is another stage of the life. The death of a seed is so big a tree, and the tree bears the many thousand seeds, and again the death of a seed is to become a tree. If the old does not die, a new will not be replaced and takes place. You say you have a building, you own a house which is 50 years old. You say, let me keep this old house and I will build a new house. Not possible. You have to demolish it completely. The name and the form must go to replace, to give birth to a new building. So what it means? What do you mean by the death now? Death means a new form, totally new, totally fresh. How is death? Is the death a celebration? My master said to all of us that when I leave this body, or means die, he said, don't create any symmetry. Otherwise, people will stop worshipping that symmetry. Never do that. So, what to do? He said, contributor, giver attitude. Well, we discussed that. He said, put me into a wooden box with a deep holes and throw this body into the Ganges River so that it becomes a food to those ocean, river animals. You should not worship the symmetry. He strictly warned everyone. We have to follow his last wish. We all followed it. I still remember many a times he used to repeat, you are not changing in front of me. How can I believe you will change when this body will die? I know what you are going to do. What you will do? That you will create a sculpture, you will create a big picture of mine, and you will pray, you will seek a blessing from that dead picture. I always have tears in my eyes when I listen to this. So we have covered 11, verse number 11, 12, and 13. Think and contemplate. But don't leave the practice that we have done the last time. So death means a manifestation. The death of a seed is the manifestations of such a big tree. which give rise to so many seeds in the fruits. Is our death like the same? Yes and no both. We will understand that.